All righty. Oops.
Hello, everyone. As things start to trickle in, hopefully everyone is having a fabulous, amazing Monday and you all can hear me okay. Let me put the chat up. Make sure, wait, that's not the chat. That would be something else. All right, I did receive some of y'all's input and you said that you wish that I had put the workbook, and in my mind I made this mental notebook that I'd have the link, and here I don't have the link. So give me a second and let me get the link for you all. Today feels like a Wednesday. It does not feel like a Monday. I don't know about you guys, but it's already been one of those busy days already. All right, hold on. I'm grabbing the workbook for everybody. I did get several people ask me about the replay. I will be sending out the replay for 3 sessions tomorrow. And so for those who may not have gotten it, here is the workbook right here. Just click on that link. And I am super excited to see you all back today. And for those that didn't join us yesterday, welcome to day 2 of our Travel Launch Challenge. Listen, I haven't hosted this challenge in about 2 years. And when I say you guys showed up and showed out yesterday, you did. So you literally have broken my record of number of live participants yesterday. And I read everyone's feedback from yesterday, and I am so excited to be hosting you all again in day 2. But before I dive in, I just want to do a really quick recap. So if you are here again for day 2, or if you're new, type in the chat and let me know if you guys are ready to kill it again today with what we've got going on. So I'd love to see where you guys are also. So Shai, who's our special guest, she can see where you guys are watching from. And if you're anything like me, what you're drinking. I am drinking smart water out of Georgia. So nothing spirited for me, but I am drinking some water because I do need to stay hydrated during our session. All right. Bring it on for day 2. We've got Southern Minnesota, Hampton, Georgia. I don't think that's too far from me. Clearwater, Florida. Welcome, Tara, Angela, Jordan, Karen, Brenda. Lots of water drinkers. Hey, Lori.
Water here.
That's right. Water keeps us hydrated. St. Augustine, Florida, H-Town. No drinking. Hate I missed it yesterday. That's okay. You missed a good one, but we will get you out the replay tomorrow. Millville, New Jersey, drinking water. So listen, that's right. No spirits, because we've got work to do getting our businesses together. And so kiss me, Cirque water. All right, Conyers. Hey, I've got some Conyers people. I'm in Stockbridge, so I'm not too far from you all. You're in Georgia too, aren't you, Shai?
I am. I'm actually in Woodstock.
Where is Woodstock?
Everybody says that I'm literally right above Marietta, like Marietta, Smyrna. I'm right there.
Okay, so you are north of me, northeast, west of me,
Yes.
where
Yes.
I am. So I need to claim my Georgia peachness, but I'm not fully knowing where all of the
Well,
peaches.
I'm a California girl, so I'm a golden peach.
You're a golden peach. I'm a pecan from Texas, so I'm a nutty peach, I guess. I love it.
That
All
fits
right.
you.
I know. We'll have to use that one, right? I'm a nutty peach. I am a little nutty too. So, thank you all for telling me where you guys are watching from, and what I'd love to also get for you, so Shai can also know kind of how it went down and who all is who out there. What was your biggest takeaway from what we went over yesterday for those that did join us? What did you take out of lessons learned from our exercise yesterday? Golden Peach too. I lived in California for like 3 years. That's how I learned how to talk. So that's where my Valley Girl talk comes from.
In
Anisha,
California does not count, sweetie.
It doesn't. Doesn't. I know.
Mhm.
Diego. I didn't say Southern. Yeah, I guess it is. That is Southern. I'm like, I'm so geographically challenged.
Never mind.
I am
Stick to
so
what you know.
that is so funny. Like I'm in the travel industry, and I am probably one of the most geographically challenged persons that I know.
Honestly, most agents are geographically challenged, I
I
have
am.
found.
I didn't.
So
I skipped a grade in grade school, and I skipped where you have to study the states. So like I don't know where anything is. It's really pretty bad. All right, so we've got some people typing what their biggest takeaway was, which is the importance of honing on your niche. Niche is a person, not a thing. Learning who your ideal client is in the prompt that you shared with us. So I'm really glad you guys enjoyed that prompt. Really understanding what is my niche, focus on the person and what they want versus what we think they want, which is really great. Lighten the load on my shoulders. Feel like ChatGPT. So Micah, she's our other techie geek like me, so she really liked the prompt exercise that we did yesterday. So that's awesome. All right, so thanks for all of those of you all that shared what you took away from yesterday. Again, it is my hope that you are feeling pumped and you are ready to go, because we are going to be building on the clarity of focusing on connection today. I mentioned yesterday how important it is to know who your ideal client is. The next step now is really to learn how to talk to them, how to build trust and guide them towards booking with confidence. And I'm so excited to have Shai Boston with us to take a deeper look into that process. But before I introduce her, I just want to remind you all that we are on a journey here. This is not just a one-day event, and that's all that you can do to really get the kinds of insights that you need to do. Each day of our challenge is building upon each other, and everything is about setting you up for success. So if you're feeling like you're more focused and confident, that's really the momentum that I want you to keep throughout the rest of this week. I love the feedback that you all have dropped inside of the group as well, so keep it up. Now, let me introduce Shai Boston. She is a powerhouse in the world of talent development and the cruise industry. With nearly 25 years of experience, she's a certified professional in talent development. CPTD is what that stands for, a certified master trainer and an executive director with the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. Her coaching, training, and communication expertise have transformed the careers of countless professionals, and she's here to help you all do the same. On top of that, she's a world traveler who's explored some of the most breathtaking destinations, including Alaska, Hawaii, and the Caribbean. Her passion for travel and helping others achieve their goals shines through in everything that she does. So please, everyone, give us a warm welcome for Shai, and thank you so much for being here and talking to my community. I'll let you take it from here.
right. Thank you so much. It is a joy and to be here with all of you. I think I need you to be hyping me up all the time, Sundey. What? Okay. I appreciate that. I am so happy to be here with all of you. I realize some of you might be new to the industry. Some of you have been around for a while. If you have been around for a while, you may also know me from working at CLIA at one point. I was the senior manager of learning administration there. So I've actually been around the cruise industry for about 22 years this year. And I've been trained thousands of agents, literally. So I'm very happy to be here and to be able to offer to you a training that I developed when I worked at one of the cruise lines, as well as did another version of it while working at CLIA. And so this is a shortened and condensed version for all of you today. Before we get started, I thought I would also give you a little bit more insight into me and who I am. Been happily married for 23 years to a wonderful teacher, and I'm a dog mom. That's my little boy, Stewie, my little pupster. And, I love culture. And so I'm into Korean dramas and Korean pop, K-pop music. Yes, I know people are, but let me tell you, some of our best R&B producers are over there doing some good music. So if you miss some good old R&B, you better get into K-pop. And I love calling myself a global citizen. I have enjoyed traveling of places. Haven't been to everywhere I've wanted to be in the world, but like many of you, I love travel. I love everything that travel stands for and what we can get out of it, the memories and so forth. And so today, when we start talking about working with your clients and communication, there a way that you can communicate your clients into buying. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. But to start, I'd like for you to take a look at this image. Now, you've probably seen this image before, but take a good look at this image. And I'm not going to be able to see the chat, unfortunately, so I'm going to rely on Sundey for me. Can you guys tell me what you see in this image? What's the first thing that you see in this image? All right,
Faces, that's what everyone's saying. Faces.
so everyone is seeing faces. Interesting. So I just pulled up the chat just briefly to kind of get an idea of what it says. So faces. Um, does anybody see an entryway or vases? Or is it vase when it's two? I'm not sure.
I don't
But do you
know.
see a vase in a vase?
I always liked to say vase when I was
Vase.
younger. I was like, it made me feel fancy.
Right? Doesn't it sound like, bougie vase?
Yes, I don't see a vase. I don't see vases, 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 any of that.
So we see faces and we may see two vases, you might see some entryways, things like that. I'm going to go ahead into this next image. Now, when I get to this next one, I'm going to tell you, I want you to start with the number 1 and I want you to count as high as you go, as high as you possibly can in numerical order. All right. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to do that. Here we go. All right. That was 10 seconds. How did you do? Who got 5? Who got up to 5?
You get several people.
Somebody got a few people got 5. Oh, somebody saw chess pieces. Okay, Michael, I like how you think. We over here playing, playing checkers and he over here playing chess on that last one. Okay. All right. So, oh, somebody got up to 12. Now, what if I told you there was a pattern to this and I showed you the pattern, right? So let me show you this. Bear with me here as I'm working through all these controls. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now see how high you can get knowing that there's a pattern. All right. How high did you get this time? 17, 12. Okay. All right. So then the question comes up of Shai, why are we doing all of this? We looked at these pictures, we looked at this pattern and what's taking place. And why don't you share with me your initial thoughts and impressions about why we took a look at those particular images in that exercise? Someone said the psychology of it all. I wish I was that deep, Sean. Ah, very good. Very good. Okay, so there's thoughts of, there's details, focus, there's patterns, but understanding that there is patterns and different perspectives. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about, that there are different patterns and perspectives. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. When we actually, what's going on? Hold on. I think I skipped a, let me back up for a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when it comes to our perceptions, when we're talking about communication, oftentimes our perceptions of other people or the perceptions of how we think we communicate and how others are communicating with us can be a challenge. We might think one way, like we're communicating, and we're not understanding why the other person is not understanding what we're trying to say in the Okay, now get it back together, shall we? So we're not always understanding why there are some miscommunications. There's also patterns when it comes to our communication. And so when we go forward today and I talk to you about some of these things and I give you a brief overview about how to tell what mode of communication someone is in, you'll notice those nuances of there's
Say,
certain patterns to pay attention to. I'm sorry?
I will mute everyone.
Oh, okay. So you'll notice that there's certain patterns to pay attention to, and that will help us when we're talking about how to communicate and how to communicate effectively with our clients in order to get the results we want, which is, of course, to get to more sales. So this is an overview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about communication and get a better understanding of what exactly is communication. And then we're going to link that to DISC, DISC. Some of you may have heard of this. I happen to be a DISC behavioral analyst. So what that means is I not only look at how people communicate, I'm also looking at the behaviors behind the communication and how that connects to everyone else, as well as other things like leadership and influence and so forth. And then from there, we'll wrap it up and we'll also take some questions when we are done. I'll try to take some along the way as well and stop and remember to do that as we're going through, because I like to make sure that I'm engaging you and addressing some of your questions as we're going along. So the one is if I move a little bit too fast, that you go ahead and ping Sunday so she knows for me to slow down. She can give me a heads up and I can go back and recover something or whatever the case may be, okay? This is about your learning, so I want to make sure that you're getting everything out of this particular training that you can get. So, what are our objectives? What are our goals for today? The first goal is that we're going to look at the different styles of communication and identify those different types of styles once we understand what communication is and what it means. We'll talk about how you can analyze your client's communication style while you're talking to them, because the way that they're talking to you in one moment may not necessarily be the way that they're going to talk to you in another moment. So that's going to be important to see. And then, of course, how do we apply all of this when we're talking about interacting with your clients? So, first up, my question to all of you is what is communication, or how would you define communication? I'm going to open up the chat and see what we have here. Let's see here. How would you define communication? Okay, a transfer of thoughts, coming to an agreement, information exchanged, the method of exchanging thoughts and ideas, sharing of information. Great. Thank you for that. A lot of us would say that it is the transferring of information from one source, like a person, a place, or a thing, to another source. Here's really what communication comes down to. Communication is having a sender with a message that is going to a listening recipient. And that's how we get communication. So I'm going to repeat that again. We have a sender that has a message that is being sent to a listening recipient. And that is what equals communication. So if the equation is this easy for us, then we have to think, why is there such a challenge when it comes to communication? Well, part of it is, if you notice, I said a listening recipient. So there's a difference between hearing and listening. And many of us know that, but we don't always necessarily apply it when it comes to our communication. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So we have the sender, they have a message, and they're getting it to a listening recipient. But there's a lot of complexities when it comes to communication that has to involve how you were raised or your current environment when you're trying to communicate. Are there internal issues going on, perhaps mental and physical health? Are there external issues? There's outside noises, other people around, cultural differences and nuances. You can have the same word in many different languages and it'll mean different things. You have the mode of communication. Are you talking text? Are you talking email? Are you talking verbal communication? Are you talking, perhaps it's written like a letter or a note? And then, of course, there are emotions. Now, there's tons of other things that are involved in the complexities of communication because you can get into body language, gestures, you can get into all of those different types of things, the nonverbal types of things. But this is kind of a general overall explanation of some of the complexities we face when we're talking about communicating. So, because of that, that's why we go back to our particular pictures and what we learned from there. When we are aware of a pattern of how people communicate, we not only know what kind of communication to expect from them, we also know how best to prepare for communicating with them, how to interact with them, and how to respond to them in a way that will create successful communication. And when we become more aware of the patterns related to how we communicate, then we learn how to adjust and adapt better to everyone else around us because we realize that everyone is not going to receive our message the way that we're necessarily putting it out there. So, one thing I would like for you to keep in mind when you are talking to your clients, your goal in communicating with them is to sync up to them, not to get them to sync up to you. And what I mean by that is we're on the other end of a call, a Zoom, whatever the case may be, the email, and we might be busy trying to book this flight over here. We're checking rates over here on, this all inclusive, whatever the case may be. So if a client calls in, or if you happen to jump on a Zoom call while you're multitasking, you're trying to get through and get things done. So you might be trying to speed up a call. The reality is that if you want to connect with your client, you are to sync up to them. So that requires adjustments on our part. And I know that's a huge thing, but I want you to think about that. Adjustments on our part in order to sync up to our clients is what's going to build connection, build that trust and that loyalty in you. It's going to allow you to have influence. And we'll talk more about influence in just a bit. So we should communicate in order to understand and connect. That's really the only goal of communication, is to communicate with the purpose of connection and understanding. Otherwise, what's the point of talking to someone else, sharing thoughts, giving advice? Your goal is to use your words and the things that you're saying in order to get them to understand what you're trying to say and to build a connection. So the framework around DISC is not meant to label us or to place us in a box or anything like that. In fact, many of us will fit multiple areas of DISC. It's just that you may have some primary dominant ways that you communicate. And frankly, we all communicate a little bit differently at work than we do at home or in social settings. And I know that seems like, I thought I communicated the same way. Not necessarily. At work, especially when you're owning your own business, you have to be the CEO. So you are the entrepreneur, you are the business owner, you're the travel consultant. You wear all those hats, and that places you at the forefront of making all the decisions. But when you get home, you might be playing mommy and daddy, or you might be playing caregiver, or your role might be the sibling or the cousin or whatever the case may be, or you might have a roommate, or you might be flying solo. So you don't necessarily have to make all of those same decisions at work or act in the same capacity. You might actually be able to distribute and share code. So the way you communicate is going to be a little bit different. Few of us are going to be drastically different because we learn to adapt to different environments and situations. But nonetheless, the way you communicate at work and at the office is going to be slightly different. So, learning how to communicate with your clients is going to be very, very different and very important. We're going to work on, and I can't emphasize this enough, our ultimate goal is to make sure that there's understanding and connection, because that is what's going to help drive the sales. Now, what are some of the things that shape our personality? So, we talked about the complexities of communication, but these are three core things that really impact our overall personality, not necessarily our communication. And we saw there's multiple things for communication. Our personality is shaped by our hereditary influences. Okay. So, what we get from our parents and what's come down through the family line and DNA often determines how our personality is going to turn out. Some of us may have gotten our, I like for me, I've got my mother's very outgoing personality, but I've got more the analytical side from my dad when that decides to kick in. So we may get different things that come down the line. The next thing is our environment, where we grew up, how we grew up, all of those different things. Someone that may have grown up, like I have friends that grew up here in the South and they grew up here in Georgia out on farms. And for them coming into the city was a challenge, even coming into the burbs. That was the environment that they were used to and that they were comfortable with. Others can make an adaptation. So our environment, literally, physically, as well as the influences in those environments, also shapes our personality. And then, of course, you have your role models. The people, they say the people that are the five closest people that are closest to you are who you emulate at a given time. So, our role models, whoever were the ones that were the biggest influencers in our lives, are generally the ones that have shaped our personality. Whether they were good influences or not, it still helped to shape our personalities and mold us into the people that we've come to today. So these are the components that come together to help us shape our communication styles. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about DISC. And again, we're talking about patterns. We're talking about how you can learn to figure out what to expect, not only from yourself, but also when you're talking with your clients. And also, too, this is going to help you to determine the right strategy to use when you're talking with your clients. So let's go ahead and get into the DISC model itself. So DISC is actually a personality indicator, is what they say. I use it as communication and personality indicators. Again, looking at the behavior patterns associated with all of these different things. And it breaks up into four areas. You have dominant, which is here. The I is for influencing, the S is for steady, and the C is for compliant. Okay, so those are the different styles. Now, again, just because you may identify in one particular area or another, that doesn't mean that you're being labeled as something negative. There is good in every one of these communication styles. And in fact, a good team is made up of all of these different communication styles because they can all feed off of each other and work well together. So, determining one's personality and communication style is actually kind of relatively easy. There's a couple of key ways in order to do that while you're talking to someone, and I will help you to identify how to do that and give you some very good examples of that. Personality modes are actually indicated by three things: personality and communication modes. So, one is the rate of one's speech, the pitch or tone when one is speaking, and if they are more people oriented or task oriented, will dictate where they fall on this particular um, model. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this a little bit more. When we're talking about rate of speech, when you first talk to someone, you want to notice how quickly they're talking or how slowly they're talking. If they're talking really fast and they're trying to get to the point and so on and so forth, and they're just going with if they're faster paced, they're going to fall into the dominant or influencing categories. If they're a little slower paced, maybe a little bit more laid back when they talk, a little bit slower. Some might even pause while they're talking. Then they're probably going to be in the steady and compliant zones. So faster paced speech means more than likely they're in the zone of being in the dominant or influencing area. And if they're talking a little bit slower paced, they're probably in the steady and compliant area. Now, again, this is how you're listening to them at the moment in the conversation. We'll talk about how interact in just a moment so you'll better understand why we're saying in that particular moment. The final part of this particular puzzle. Oh, by the way, let me go back. So if they are more faster paced in talking, they're probably more outgoing. And if they're slower paced in talking, they're probably more introverted. So I want you to think about that for a second. Think about some of the people in your life who just naturally talk a little bit faster. Some of them are probably a little bit more outgoing. And then those that might be a little bit more laid back or maybe talk a little bit slower, if they talk at all, they're probably more introverted. And last part of this is orientation in regards to, are they task oriented or are they people oriented? Task oriented means that they're checking off boxes. They want to get things done. They're trying to get these goals accomplished. People oriented means that when they're having discussions, they're using words like we and our. They're including everyone else. They're going to ask you how you're doing. They're going to focus, and so that's going to be on the right side of the quadrant, but there's still some specific nuances in there, and we'll get to that in a moment. So if they're task oriented, they're going to be either dominant and compliant on the left side of this quadrant, or if they're if they're people oriented, where it's about people, they're involving people, they're feeling warm and fuzzy, different things like that, they're going to be towards the influencing and steady side. So this is what it all looks like when it's all put together. Your outgoing are your dominant, in your introverted are going to be more on the compliant steady, and they're going to either lean towards being more task oriented or they're going to be leaning towards more people oriented. I'm going to pause here for just a moment. Someone, Cassandra said, my mom would say, you talking to me like you talk to one of your employees. Yeah, I know. So, Micah, you were asking for me to repeat. Please provide a little bit more to let us know what you would like for me to repeat, if anything else. Okay. Well, I'm glad you love this, Latanya. When I tell you this, and this is just a general overview, I have taught this particular course, I have spread it out over an entire day. That's how deep we can go into some of these things. And I'll share a little bit of fun things once we get to that portion that lets you know a little bit of nuance, and you're going to start looking at the whole world differently. I promise you on that. All right. So let me close out the chat and let's go ahead and keep moving along. Okay, word choice and tone also play a key role in determining where someone is on this particular chart. So this is where we get to have a little bit of fun, and this is where you're really going to have your brain tickled while you're thinking about all life as well as yourself and where you might fall on this whole quadrant. So we're going to start in the upper left-hand side of the quadrant, which is D for dominant. These are result-driven people. Their tone tends to be a lower toned because they're going to be straight to the point and they want the bottom line. They might sometimes even talk in a monotone, but they're going to be very direct. They're going to use words like I need in telling you what they need. They're going to tell you what they need because they're telling you. Dominants are going to tell you rather than ask you, if you will. Their tone is a little bit lower, mainly because of the fact that they're not overly excited. They're not overly enthusiastic as far as anything like that, except for maybe possibly money. But this is someone that's going to be pretty stern, pretty blunt, pretty to the point in that regard. If you were to describe them as far as what kind of car or vehicle they would drive, they would probably drive something like a Mercedes Benz. It'll probably be black. When they are doing flip charts, it's probably going to be in one color. It's probably going to be in all black, or it's going to be blue. It's going to be something kind of corporate-ish in that sense, because they believe in precision, and they also believe in results. Now, it's listed here that they're kind of outgoing. They're outgoing in the sense of
Right.
they're outgoing in the sense of, if it is going to be about them making money, if it's going to be about them getting what they need, then yes, they're putting themselves out there, but they're very task oriented. Now let's go to their counterpart on the other side, the right side, which is I for influencing. Now, these people are primarily focused on themselves. We're not narcissists, because they're not, but they are generally the center of attention, and they often put themselves into the center of attention, knowingly or unknowingly. They are likely to have a much higher toned voice. Okay. So when you think of someone that might be a little bit more self focused, think of maybe a Kardashian.
That's exactly who I was thinking.
So in this particular, for them, they are going to be the ones that are more likely to drive, let's say, a candy apple red car. They probably have a Tesla or something along those lines, a look at me. So some of them are going to be driving the cyber. That also applies to the people that are results driven, because they also like to be looked at, but they also like to show off their money, or they like to show off their level of power or strength, so to speak. And again, we're talking generalities. So there's a whole lot more complexity to this, and I'm simplifying it. So when you're talking about influencing people, they use terms like, well, what I like, or they'll say, well, how are you? Okay, great. Enough about you. Ask me about me. Let me tell you about my day. They'll tell you what their favorite things are. They'll tell you what they think, because they're centering themselves into the conversation. Now, they're very outgoing because they're social bugs, butterflies. They're out there, they're in the middle of everything. And that was kind of what makes them a little bit people oriented. They are influencers. They're the ones that can get people to move and take action sometimes, because sometimes want to be like. Now let's go to the lower side of the spectrum, and let's move over to the left under C for compliance. These are your process driven people. They're the ones that are going to do checklists. They're the ones that are going to ask you to slow down, because they're thinking and processing what you said. They're the ones that will come into a conversation 45 minutes later to ask you about something that was said 45 minutes ago, and you have no clue what was said at that point, because they're still those things. So their tone is going to be more evened, more monotone for the most part. They can sometimes get a little bit more excited, but they're relatively introverted, so they're more quiet, more even toned. If they were doing a flip chart, they're probably going to use two colors max. They're probably going to use like a black and brown or black and blue, that kind of a thing. And I meant to tell you, if you're looking at an influencing person, you're asking them what kind of colors they're using, they're probably going to try to pull out a colors like a red, something bright, something that's going to draw attention. So your process driven, your C compliant person, they're going to be more steady. If they were driving a car, their car is probably going to be a Volvo, because they're all about checking off the safety features. Or maybe it's the Subaru, something along those lines. That's someone that's a little bit more process driven. On the right side, you have the relationship driven person, which is S for steady. So the relationship person is going to have a much warmer tone. They're going to be more friendly. They're probably going to smile a lot. They're going to use words like we and our. They're going to say, I care. I've been thinking about you. How may I? So they're always trying to be inclusive. If you were to look at their flip charts, they're color coded, because they're the kind that's going to have a journal, that's going to have a pen to match, and all the highlighters that are going to match and coordinate and look beautiful with their calendars and everything else. Okay, so their flip charts are going to be multicolored and coordinated by color. In addition, if we were to say what kind of car they would drive, they're probably going to drive a four-door or a minivan because they're always thinking about other people. Who is going to go with me on this trip? So these are your overall categories and how you can generally highlight where people are when you're talking to them. Now, here's a little tip. It is easy for a D to go to an I or a D to go to a C. A D has a challenge going diagonal to a S because those of us that are S's, that are steady, that are relationship driven, we talk and we like to talk and we want to ask questions because we want to know all about the other person. Now, an I can go from an I D because they can go from focusing on themselves to I need the bottom line because again, it's still about what they need. And they can also come down to S sometimes. They can come and be a little bit more relationship oriented because they do have that side of them that cares about other people. They just tend to center themselves in the conversation. But because eyes are very harried, they're moving quickly, they're making quick decisions. A D is going to be a little bit slower in making a decision. They're going to be decisive when they make their decision. So they might weigh out everything else. They're going to look at all the facts and they're going to be decisive. An I is going to make a quick decision. They can come down to an S because there's times when they can slow down and they can take their time in making a decision that's inclusive of everybody else, but they're still going to center themselves into that. They cannot come over to a C. It is challenging them to come to a C because a C is so much slower. I is tortoise. I'm sorry, I is hare, C is tortoise. So coming over to that side, they're like, oh my God, are you asking about this again? Okay, we're ready to move on. Can we move on? Can we next bullet points? And C is like, well, well, no, because we still understand. So that's why it's hard to go diagonal. So as you can see, as you're moving around the chart, these can all go to generally the next one across. The only one that does not have a challenge moving into other areas, so like a C can go to a D and an S, but going diagonal is a challenge. The only one that does not have a challenge going diagonal is the S because we're relationship oriented. So if you are very point and to the point and you're fine, then fine. I can do that and adapt to you too. I'm also going to try to win you over to my side. And I'm also going to ask you how you're doing that day. And you're going to be like, fine. And I'm going to be like, okay. And then we're going to move on. So S is the only one out of all of this that is the most flexible when it comes to adapting to other styles. Now, again, you're not necessarily going to be one particular letter. You're going to be a combination of letters. And because of that, that's what shaped your overall personality and communication and behavioral style. So that's why we do actual reports and assessments and analyze all of that. I'm going to pause here momentarily and look at the chats. So Angela, I love it. She says, I'm a green steady person who loves color on my flip chart, but I drive a SUV. That's your eyesight coming out. So you went from an S to an I. So that's can definitely move around. Sunday, you can't cover all of this. So when we do any type of assessments, when I do assessments with my clients, the assessment takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And once it's completed, there's some results that come out. I review all of those results, analyze those, and that's how I talk to my clients about their communication styles. So Michael brings out a really good point. He says, I may be wrong, but we all may be S and C because the uppers don't need much help gaining the people's interest. And actually, I would say that's a little bit of yes and that's a little bit of no because while that S's and the C's might be a little bit more introverted, the S's and the I's are really going to draw the people in. The D's and the C's are going to be the ones that are going to do all the detail orientation and the fact checking. So if they're outgoing, yes, they could be a little bit more outgoing, but D's are going to be a little bit more demanding, if you will. Okay. So what makes it challenging for them when it comes to working with clients is that they are just like, tell me what you want. No, 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 no. In fact, just tell me how much you want to spend and where you want to go, and I got the rest. Whereas the S is going to sit there and be like, so where do you want to go? Really? You want to take a Mediterranean cruise? Why do you want to go to the Med? Oh, well, I've been, they're going to share everything. The C's are going to be the ones that are going to do the checklist. Okay, so you want to go to the Med? How much do you want to spend? How many people are going? When are you? The I, oh, let me tell you about the time I went to the Med. I did a 12-night Mediterranean cruise on such and such a cruise line, and we had such a blast. Okay, and so I did this and I did that. So that's how all of these different personalities are going to interact. You're very welcome, Maria. All right, so let's go ahead and keep moving on because we have a lot more to cover and I have a short amount of time. So let's keep it going. Let me close up this box here so you all can see. So this is basically some other key characteristics, and this is also letting you know the percentage of population that are these traits. So a D, they're the ones that are going to seek control. They're going to be very decisive. They're going to be direct, results driven. So think of some people like a Martha Stewart, or think of someone like Elon Musk. They're 3% of the population. Okay. The I's are more persuasive because how to talk to people. They have the gift of gab. It's all about them, but they've got the gift of gab. They are super spontaneous. So they're the people that will call you up and be like, I need to get out of town this weekend, and they're willing to go travel halfway around the world. They're going to be friendly, but they do want to be in the spotlight. So they're 11% of the population. So again, for an I, that's again why I said, think of like a Kardashian. I was trying to think of someone else that might be a good, strong I, but they're pretty much wrapping that one up. When you come to your S, your studies, they're very team oriented. They're going to follow through because they don't want to disappoint you. They're going to show loyalty. They're going to be accepting. That is 69% of the population. So think of people like a Mother Teresa or a Michelle Obama. These are the ones that are going to fall into this kind of a category. And then finally, with your C at 17%, these are the ones that are going to be more compliant. So that means that they have read the standard operating procedures. They're the ones that know the employee handbook inside and out better than you do. They're analytical, so they're thinkers, they're planners. They're going to be very accurate. With the C, you better cross your T's and dot your I's because if you miss one thing, they're going to let you know. So they're 17% of the population. You can think of someone like a Henry Louis Gates who sits and does a lot of the ancestry, finding your roots. You might think of Marie Kondo. She's the lady that has taught the art of minimalizing and rolling your clothing and all of that sort of a thing. Those are the kind of people. So that is basically describing DISC and how we all kind of fall into that. So now I'm going to tie this all together when we're talking about working with our clients. Okay. So when we know how to communicate with our clients, we can actually exercise a certain measure of influence over them. And what I mean by that is when you can sync up to how someone else communicates, you're now talking in the way that they can hear and understand and listen. So let me back up for 1 minute because I mentioned hearing and listening. So I just really wanted to highlight that since I didn't include that information here in the training today. Hearing has to do with the physical auditory function of hearing noise, hearing sounds. Listening is when we take those sounds and we're able, or perhaps even hand gestures, if you're talking about sign language, we're able to take those moments, we're able to take the sound that we're hearing and distinguish it and put it into actual words. And then we can attach understanding to the words that we're hearing. So right now, I'm hearing different noises that are going on around me. I've heard my family downstairs. I've heard cars outside and that sort of a thing. But if I was really listening, I could tell if the TV was on and what's saying or what my family might be saying, or I can hear exactly what type of car is going down the street rather than just background noise. That's the difference between hearing and listening. So when you are talking to your clients, you are listening for their tone or their pitch. You're listening for how fast that they're talking. You're listening for their word choices. And then you're going to communicate back to them in that same way, which gets them to listen to you, your recommendations, and then it starts helping them to go and to buy the sale. This is also important when we're talking using their words to sell them. Again, didn't have time to put a lot of that here into the training, but I think it's important to highlight. One thing I tell all of my travel agents, I have been saying this for 20 some odd years, and if you meet any other travel agent that's ever had any of my classes, they will tell you I say this all the time. You are order customizers, not order takers. So even if a client comes to you saying what ship they want, what sell date they want, what itinerary they want, or if they come to you and say what all inclusive they want to go to, or that they want to take Amtrak instead of taking some other means of transportation, your job as the travel counselor, as the travel consultant, or the travel advisor, whatever you choose to call yourself, is to take that information in and say, I'm going to provide you the best recommendation possible based upon what you are requesting as your needs. And then you turn around and can take that back and say, okay, well, you know what? Amtrak may not be the best way for them to get there. Here's my recommendation. And you're going to use their words. So if they wanted to take Amtrak because they wanted to see the beautiful scenery as they cross the country, but they're not opposed to driving, then you will use those words to say, you know what? One of the best ways to see this country is if you were to rent an RV and drive across by yourself, you and your family. I've got a great vendor that can set you up with a really nice RV, teach you how to drive it, all these different things, and you can take your time and see the country at your leisure. So you're going to use their words. So you also have to listen, but communicate it back to them. It's kind of like, when everybody talks about the love languages, well, that's basically in effect what you're going to do, but with language. When you're able to do that, when you use your communication skills that you've now learned, even though it's high level, you've learned enough that you can now communicate with your clients. They're looking to you to lead them on the path to their best vacation experience. When you can combine your communication and your leadership, that is when you get influence. That is when you can say, you can trust me and my recommendations. That's when they'll say, okay, came in thinking that I wanted to go to an all-inclusive resort, but now you've convinced me to do a land tour over in Italy. And I think that's going to be better because I'll get to see much more, or I'll get to experience things in the way that I want to. So when you use your influence correctly, you can bridge gaps, you can break down barriers, and you can achieve your goals, which is all going to increase your sales. So use these tips that you've learned wisely. You can practice with your family and friends and start mirroring back their language, syncing up to them. And then you can also use that when it comes to your clients as well. Just a reminder on what influence is. It's the ability to have an effect on someone else's behavior and actions to get them to do something or to get them to change. So that's why I said when we use our influence properly, then we're able to make the recommendations we feel are in the best interest of the client and their vacation and going to be the best use of their dollars. So use the power of what you have just learned very, very wisely. Connecting with people really increases your influence. It grows your credibility with them. It helps to position yourself to make the best use of your skills, your knowledge, and all of your talents. So when you can connect with other people, they are listening to you. They are engaged. And as you keep communicating and connecting with them, then you're able to demonstrate your expertise. You're able to demonstrate your skill set of pulling these packages together, resolving issues and problems that may come up. And you're also using your emotional intelligence with them because you are putting yourself in their shoes and communicating with them in the way that works best for them. That again leads to trust and credibility. We are, no matter where you fall on that particular chart when it comes to disc or what combination of characteristics you are, in a relationship business. If we are not making relationships, building those relationships, creating lasting relationships, having a customer experience or customer user experience from our website standpoint, then we are not going to last very long. Your credibility gets shot, the trust goes out the window. They're not going to listen to your recommendations, and they're going to want you to be an order taker. When you do the opposite, and you communicate and influence them effectively. When you are using all of these skills and talents to present to them the best options for them for their vacation packages, and you are an order customizer, they start to trust you. Literally, I had agents say, you know what? I've had clients come into me and say, you know what? Here, this is what my budget is, and I know that you're going to find me the right package. Just just tell me where to go. I want to go somewhere next summer. I don't care where it is. Others will say, okay, I've already been to the Caribbean. Send me somewhere else that's warm, that's sunny, and here's my budget range, and I don't care anywhere in the world to go. Now, yeah, we all want those types of clients, right? Of course we do. And you can have them too. You've already got some of them in your databases, I'm sure. You have to cultivate the relationship, and you do that by connecting with them. So here is some words that you can use when you're communicating with these clients in order to be able to reach them. When you're talking to a results-driven person, number one, you want to discuss overall price. Do not do a price breakdown. You want to discuss overall price. You want to talk about their need for this particular package because they want their needs felt or filled. And then your statement to them is, tell me what you want. Let them tell you and say, okay, I'm going to go to the drawing board and let me see what I come up with. If you're dealing with an I person who's self-focused, they want the latest and greatest. So they best in class when they're flying for the most part. They're the ones that are like, I don't want to stay at the resorts over in Mexico that everybody else stays at or down in Jamaica. I want the new resorts that are over there. And you also want to use phrases like, this has your favorite. Oh, I can see you doing some Instagrammable moments over here. Things like that. When you're talking to a relationship person, you want to delve into their emotions because their vacations are tied to their memories. They're tied to the feelings. Oh, I know you and your family are going to absolutely love going up to Alaska. And we've arranged a tour so you can go all the way and see all the major ports. And when you go see Mount Denali, it's going to be breathtaking. And that's going to be a core memory unlock for you, your children, and your parents. This is the person you also want to ask, who else will be going? You can ask that of your eyes too, because more than likely, since they're centering themselves in everything, they're planning the vacation around them and maybe they're inviting some friends. But S's especially, they're going to want to travel with their family and their friends. And then finally, if you're dealing with a compliant person that's process driven, you want to be patient with them. You don't want to rush through an itinerary with them. You want to perhaps break things down. You want to make sure that you have done your research and you know things well, because I guarantee you they've probably already done their research even before they came to you. You want to address all their concerns. Think of it as a safety checklist. And then you want to say things like, this will check all your boxes. To them, you talk to them one point at a time and permission to move to the next point. Okay, so you said that you wanted to go to France, right? Let them respond. Okay. And are you open to a river? Do you want an ocean going cruise or do you want to do a land package tour? So that's how you talk to them and then let them respond. And if they take a minute to respond, it's okay. But this is how you talk to each and every one of them. Now, there are also some challenges and barriers to communication. I'm going to hit these up really quickly because I realize I am really honing in on my time here. So, what are some of the barriers that we're going to face when it comes to communication? You're probably going to face a couple of these. So, how do you overcome that? If you're talking cultural differences, then look at those differences impartially. They're no big deal. They're just a difference in how we may view things, maybe what's important to one person that's not important to another. So perhaps it's important for someone to they want to be home for Ramadan rather than being on a cruise. And to you, you're like, okay, but this is the best time of year to go to the vacation to where you're trying to go. You want to make sure that you're looking at the cultural differences and any other type of differences that may come up that's different from you and find some common ground. Um, don't look at things through your own lens. I'm glad you guys already talked about that. One big thing, don't sell from your wallet. Just because you may not be able to afford, let's say, a lavish trip to Dubai in a seven-star hotel resort, doesn't mean your clients can't, no matter how they come to you and how they look. So when it comes to that, see the things the way your client sees. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to sit up and uh, be delulu when it comes to a client that says, got $1,000 for 5 people to go and do a 2 week vacation in Hawaii. I'm not saying play into the delulu, but what I am saying is that don't always look at things through your own lens. Maybe they want to do this trip to Hawaii because it's the only trip they're going to be able to do for X number of time. So then you would then look at how do you help make this happen for them within their budget range and also explain to them how you're going to get them the best vacation package within that budget range, but it may not be able to be 2 full weeks, something along those lines. Another barrier to communication is somebody, they only want to be heard. They just want to talk. That can also be the case with your eyes. That can sometimes be the case with your D's. So what you want to do to overcome that is try to have build mutual understanding. So you know what? I want you to share with me everything, all your concerns or all your thoughts in your vacation. I'm going to sit here and listen and take some notes because I want to make sure. Now, may I interrupt you from time to time just to make sure that I understand what you're asking of me or what you would like? If they want to tell or direct you, as some Ds are prone to do, then look at ways that you can connect with them and collaborate. So you can say, yep, tell me everything that you want. Okay, so this is how I can help you to achieve what you want in planning your vacation package. Maybe sometimes you get people that just don't listen. Sometimes your eyes are like that. They're not listening. So try to get them to be more open to listening and hearing by using the words and using phrases that would appeal to them. So you said that you wanted to go on virgin voyages. I hear that you will absolutely love it because they make you the center of attention. They do this and do that, and it's the newest ship you can get on, or this is talk to them in that way. If a client trust in you. How do you overcome that? Listen to them more, sync up to them, talk to them in the way that they want to be talked to. Sometimes that means we just have to close our mouths, ask a question and let them go, an open ended question and let them go. If a client refuses to be a part of a conversation for any reasons, now there could be any number of reasons why this is the case. So find a way to resync to the client. So if they're totally checked out of a conversation, then ask them, okay, so are there other people that are going on this trip that I should be talking to that will also be helping to make some of these decisions? What would you like for me to talk about with you today? If you get overly impatient with the client, You may not be syncing up to them. You may be in your own head. You may be doing your own communication dance because you have something else going on. Look for some nonverbal communication cues with them if you're getting impatient with them. Maybe there's something you're missing. And what I mean by that is you might be listening to the words, but there's overt and covert ways of them talking. And some of that is in the nonverbal. So look for some of those cues. If you're finding yourself getting impatient, if somebody's rambling on and on and on, and you're sitting there and you've glossed over because you're a C and you're like, these people will not shut up. You're a D and you're like, just ma'am, lady, sir, whoever, just tell me what you want. Start looking for the nonverbal communication cues. Are they nervous? Are they fidgety? Are they this? Perhaps they're neurodivergent, because some of us that are neurodivergent, we can talk for a good while and we can get lost in our conversation. And you just may have to be able to rein them back in. If a client is slow about committing and buying, then that's when you want to ask more questions to determine what you may be missing from from preventing them, what's preventing them from buying. So you can ask more of those questions and just to find out what is it that might be missing. And sometimes just asking straight up, what is preventing you from buying today? Or asking them, what concerns do you have? One question we as trainers use all the time. What questions do you have? Because I guarantee you somebody out there has a question. They're just scared to ask it. So if you say, do you have any questions? They're going to shrink back. You're like, no, no, because they feel like they shouldn't have any. But when you open the door and say, what concerns do you have? What objections do you have about this particular suggestion I'm giving? It might not be an objection. You may not even want to use that word. Just what can I do to answer any of the questions that are lingering in your mind? Okay. With that being said, we had a lot to cover today. And like I said, normally this course can go for like almost 8 hours between activities, word choices, features, advantages, and benefits, and all these different things. Cut it down drastically and quite succinctly, but I hope you got the point. You can identify the different styles of communication now. Are they a dominant type of person? Are they influencing, steady, compliant? Are they people oriented? Do they talk faster or do they talk a little bit slower? You learned how to analyze that way of your client's communication style so that you can adjust your particular style to adapt to them. And that way, they will want to listen to what you have to say. You also were able to find some word choices, ways to interact with your clients so that you can communicate them into buying, you can communicate them into closing more sales rather than having communication being the cutoff point. Communication is the opening point. Remember, the primary goal of communication is to connect for understanding. Connection and understanding. That's the whole point of communication. With that being said, I want to thank you all for the privilege of being here today. I am so happy to be here. I'm going to open the chat in just a moment. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, if you'd like to connect, here is my information. And I'm going to go and um, take a look down here. You all are very, very welcome. And
So we do have a couple of questions that came
okay,
up. Um,
yes.
Want to know questions, just maybe comments. Um, I had a question, but I want to give other people a question. Cassandra says, what if she's on a 3 or 4-way and they all the different types is what she was referring to when she typed that? Who do you focus on if you've got all of the DISCs on the call at the time?
So this is true anytime you're working with clients, especially if you're working with multiple clients. They're traveling together, whether it's a small group, big group, whatever. You want to identify who are the main people that are going to be making the decisions, period. Because sometimes you'll get people on there talking and they're not even the ones that's going to make the final decision about the flights, about the car rentals, the hotels, and things like that. So if you're on a call with 3 or 4 people, find out, okay, who's the key decision makers? If they're all decision makers, then what you do is you adjust how you're talking to each and every one. So let's say, for instance, you're talking about an all-inclusive that you're going to do. Maybe you're going to the Maldives, okay? And it's a group of friends going to the Maldives. So you already know that if you have a D type, they're going to want to know the bottom line. So you just turn to the D type and say, tell me what you would like to know. Then if you have an I type, you can say, oh, you're going to absolutely love this because, honey, you can go, you're going to have your Instagrammable moments right there in the hot tub or when you swim out from outside of your room. And if you have an S, then you can say, you know, you're going to create some amazing memories with your friends. And then if you have a C, you're just going to keep circling back to them every now and then and say, okay, so what questions did you have that I didn't answer? Or what point would you like for me to review? And every now and then you're going to slow the conversation to a pace so that they can keep up. Right. So I hope that helps you better understand how to
That was,
manage multiple.
that was Cassandra who asked that
Oh,
question.
thank you, Cassandra.
I don't see any other questions, but I have a couple, Shay, because my brain was moving very quickly around the whole idea of, is there a way for you to identify? So we all, most of us are working virtually, remotely. We don't get the opportunity and the benefit of meeting people. So the first time that we
Right.
interact with someone is maybe with their intake form. Are there questions that we can ask before we meet somebody that may give us some insight of the type of person that they are before we have that meeting with them?
Yes. So when you're talking, for instance, either on the forms or when you're talking through email communications, look at how they answer a question. So if you say, please show,
Which slide, Lori?
yeah, let us know which slide, Lori. So when you're talking to, when you're reading their communication or their response to an answer, if it says in there, where would you like to go? Italy. They're probably a C or a D. They got straight to the point and that sort of a thing. And S is probably going to be like, I would love to go to Italy.
Got
And
it.
I is probably going to say something similar. When you ask open-ended questions, if they're short and to the point, the answers, and I mean, like, it's not a checkbox that you're giving them or a drop down where they have to pick one answer, where they have to fill out text. And if it's short and brief and to the point, they're probably a D or a C. If it has more information into it, it's probably an I or an S. And then look at the word choices that they're using.
That's good. That's really good. Then my follow-up question to that was, as a marketer, which all of us are marketers, I'm really into making sure that the language and the choice of words that we use when we market to people connects
Mhm.
with them. So do you recommend that I really do love the way that Facebook allows you to do multiple messages when you do your ads. Should we create ad copy that is going to speak to D, I, S, and C's, so that it will connect to them?
Very much so. When you look at ad campaigns, when it comes to any of the brands that we want to buy from, right? So I'll give you an example. Publix is chef's kiss when it comes to their advertising during the holidays. Why? They tug at the heartstrings, right? So they're hitting us S people right in the sweet spot. You look at someone like a Best Buy. Best Buy is really good at getting to the I's and the D's. Why? Because they know you want this. Apple, Apple hits almost everybody. Apple
Mhm.
talks about safety. Why? Because you have your compliance people that want to talk about safety. Then you have the D people. Why did the D people? The D people just want to know how much is it going to cost and what am I going to get for this cost? You have the I people. They want the latest and the newest. That's why it's called an iPhone. joke. But they want to know, they want the latest and the greatest. They don't care what it's cost. They're going to go stand in line around the block for 2 days to get that latest iPhone.
Yeah.
And then for the S people, they talk about how you can connect it to your life, right? What is a Siri? They sit up there and you can connect Siri to your life. So Apple does an excellent job of hitting everybody on the spectrum or everybody on that quadrant in different commercials that they put out there. So you can do the same thing. If you do have a specific avatar, client, ideal client type, and let's say your clients are, you want family oriented clients, well, you're primarily going to look for the people and put your messaging out there in such a way that it's going to appeal to your S's, maybe even your C's, because those are your people oriented folks. I'm sorry, the S's and I's are your people oriented folks. And you might even get the C's in there because the C's are going to want to check things off of their bucket list. And then because they can slide into S, they're going to want to check them off with their friends and family. So you can definitely do that.
I definitely think that what you definitely have opened my brain up to thinking about another layer of your ideal client in terms of, we speak about, I want to work with, let's say, moms with young children, but they all could be on that disc spectrum. And so that messaging that I would want to create, I would want to create multiple versions of that message to connect to the different types of moms or whoever it is that I want to do based on these characteristics that you've described. And I think that is just another layer of information that's going to help you connect with your ideal person even more. This was great. Hopefully you
Yeah.
guys felt based on your comments, I think you guys have felt that you got some amazing power out of this. What would be the next steps for the people who are on? We're at about 70 plus people on, Shay.
Oh,
What would be some of the next steps that you would give them to take this information?
okay. So I would say what the next steps is to go back and start thinking about yourself. When you start having your conversations, oh, sorry for that outside noise there. When you start having your conversations with your family and friends, think about how you're having those conversations. What are your word choices when you're talking with them? Is it different when you're at home? Is it different? Because sometimes it's even different when you're at home and when you're in social settings, right? Like for me, when I'm training, I'm very much an I. I'm out there, I'm an I, I'm talking to everybody because all the attention is on me. So I have to have all this energy, so on and so forth. When I'm at home with my family and my friends, I'm more into an S. I'm in crisis mode, I go into C. I go into my SC because I need to do a checklist. I need to make sure I know who all the doctors are and all of those types of things. So really pay attention to how you're communicating. Start seeing how you can connect to other people. Listen to how other people are communicating and then try to sync up to them. So those are two ways you can start exercising right now the very information that we just talked about today. And then definitely you can extend that to your clients. It gets a little bit easier. So those are two ways that you can do that. And then of course, if you want to go dive deeper and all of that, I'm available as a resource to do that as well.
That's lovely. I let me just read some of the comments because would you combine all of that? This is Brittany in
Mm,
one ad copy. No, we would definitely have separate, different messages.
yes.
The greatness about marketing is that you should have more than one message going out. If you were running a Facebook ad, you'd have multiple versions of one particular copy that would be appealing to the different types of people that have been described here.
Here's the other thing. Not all products are going to suit all people.
No.
So I'll give you a perfect example. And sorry, I go to the world of cruise, but we can even go to airlines, for instance. So you might be flying somebody overseas. There are going to be some people that are not going to pay for first class, but they'll pay for business class. And there's others is like, I don't care how I get there. I just want to get there. They're going to want to be in economy. So you're not going to, or they might say, I don't want to fly British Airways. I want Alitalia or some other airline. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Emirates, because Emirates is much classier when it comes to their business and first class. So all products are not going to suit all people. We don't all use the same, body wash and perfumes and things like that, different things. So that's why you don't want to try to cram all of that into your ad copy. Your ad copy will end up too busy. It will end up being taking up too much white space because you want to make sure it is readable and it has good images. You want to tell a story when you're talking about your marketing. And I'm sorry, I'm getting into a whole nother marketing course, but we're here. You want to tell a story with your marketing. So that's why you're going to use an appropriate image, and you're going to use the right word choices that go with that image, and it's going to target who you want to target specifically with that. If I'm trying to target a D person, I'm not going to just sell them on a family cruise. What I'm going or an all-inclusive that's a family-oriented all-inclusive, what I'm going to say is this particular resort or this particular cruise has high-speed internet. Why? Because a D is probably going to stay connected to work. So you want to adjust your copy to fit the person that you're trying to reach.
Even at a personality level, which I mean, I think is the additional layer that you've added on here is it's not, so yesterday I was telling you all, it's not just the demographics that's important about it, it's what they care about, their pains, why they can't get themselves out of town. And now you've got this additional layer for you to consider, which is what is their personality type and how can you connect to them based on the type of person that they are, which is just so much more great information for us to do. Brittany asks a little bit further, which is, how would you segment your people, your email list based on these characteristics? I mean, there's a lot that immediately comes to my mind, but Shai,
Wow.
what are your thoughts there?
There's a lot of different ways to segment your email list. So the one thing I'm going to recommend is when you're segmenting, be careful not to overly segment because now you're going to have a gazillion different email lists when you're trying to send out information. So start with some of the main segmenters that you would use, whether it's you're segmenting them by family, you're segmenting them by hobbies, or something along those lines. If you get to know some of your clients extremely well, then you may want to tag on and add into your CRM, which is the best place to put this information, your customer relationship management tool. You want to put into there, this person may be more this or this. Or now, I will tell you once again, the way somebody talks to you on one day may not be their normal pattern because it could be that they're in a hurry because they're trying to get to their kids and pick them up from school. So they're talking to you really fast and they're just like, please just you know what, just go ahead and send it to me and tell me da da da. And you're like, oh, well, they're a results person. But any other day they're talking to you and they're like, okay, now walk me through this step by step. So you want to be careful about overly segmenting. But if you really know somebody and you've had multiple conversations and interactions with them where you're pretty sure where they land, then I would say go ahead and make a note of that in your CRM. And if you want to segment some that way where you're saying, okay, I want to appeal to, for instance, I want to appeal to homeschooling moms who love their kids, but they want to make sure they're checking off the needs of meeting the guidelines for homeschool, you're hitting your S and your C's. So that's when you can do something like that.
I think what's additionally interesting, Shai, too, is the percentages of the people that you said fall into these categories.
Right.
So I think you said the majority of the people are in uh,
Yes.
the S level, and so when it comes to S, S's number is 69% of the population is there.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to ad copy, its likelihood, particularly depending on your ideal client, it's likely they're going to fall in here. So your language, at minimum, you need to have copy, email copy, at Facebook ad copy, just the way that you talk to at least appeal to some of what you know from a percentage perspective. Like that's even important information, I think, to gather as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
This was great. All right. So a couple of people asked, do you have a class? Like, do you
Yeah.
do a class on this? How can people dive deeper into this topic? This is a
So
very good topic.
There's a couple of ways to dive deeper. Of course, because I'm also a coach as well, so we can work together one-on-one and dive deeper into that. I do masterminds from time to time talking about leadership thinking skills along with communication skills, where we go into this. And no, I have not done a full-blown all-day class, but I guess I might have to go ahead and pull that together if
It
there's
sounds
a
like
lot
there
of
may be
interest.
interest in that. And certainly as a part of foundations, Shay has been gracious enough. And so we will be including, let me let you tell what you will include as a bonus for foundations, people who sign up for foundations.
So if you sign up with foundations, what will be included is your personal disc assessment and I can't even talk now. And also to the opportunity to have a one-on-one consultation and coaching session with me. So once you do your assessment, we will meet together for about an hour and a half to really dive deep, not only into your particular analysis, but also to how you can relate to everybody else. So that will be included as part of your foundations package.
That's lovely. So that is great. All right. So listen, Shay, you've been amazing. It has been like now, so like I'm monitoring my speech. I'm like, am I talking a D or an I? Because like what, like that is you. Pretty awesome. And so let me tell you guys what you can expect for day 3. So Shay, I just want to again thank you so much for bringing the fire and again giving us another layer to think about in terms of how we interact with our ideal client, because it's people that buy trips, it's not things that buy themselves, right? So it's the people.
Exactly.
The more that we can connect with people, the more successful that we will be in selling to those people. So that's been really amazing, the perspective that you've given us and the tools that you've given us to do that. For day 3, what you're going to get from us tomorrow is I'm going to be bringing to you what I refer to is our ARC process, which is around how do you attract, relate, and convert your ideal client in a automated fashion. How do you consistently attract the type of person that you want to work with and get out of town? How do you do that? And so we're going to talk about what that ARC system looks like, how you create an ARC system inside of your travel business, and what those steps are included. We're going to work on a client journey map in our session tomorrow. So do not stop the fire and the momentum that we've had this last 2 days. Join us tomorrow for day 3. And again, we will be talking a little bit more about our foundations program. But as Shay indicated, your personal disc assessment and a one-on-one consultation will be included as a part of our foundations program. This is the first time that we've ever done something like this. So I'm very excited. I have never done a disc. So I'm excited to be doing my disc with her. I haven't talked to you, Shay. Like I will be signing up to do my disc with you. I've done a strength finders, I've done a Myers-Briggs, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I want to just sort of kind of give you guys some insight on is I gave you guys a prompt yesterday to identify some characteristics about your ideal client. What I want to do is sort of flip that on its head. If you had the characteristics about yourself, right? Your own disc assessment, your own personality assessment. When you're using AI, it will help you create content better and in your voice and to allow you to connect with your ideal client too. So doing a disc assessment on yourself and understanding how you communicate against the type of client you want to work with is even more ammunition that you can use to help AI make you great, right? Like, so I'm all about utilizing tools that are going to make it easier for what I do in my life. So, yes, it would, Angela. It absolutely would help. So I am personally using my strength finders and I've taken another personality. So I'm going to add this additional layer on top of that so that I have my own personal tone and style guide. So when I create content or utilize AI for the creation of content or anything for that matter, it's talking like Sundey, right? Nobody wants, I hope you're doing well type of copy going out because AI is talking AI-ish. We want it to talk like you. So having your own assessment about you in relationship to who you want is a very powerful way to utilize AI. So enough about that, because again, I could literally talk to you about days about that. I will be talking to you more about foundations. For those of you who are interested in taking this further beyond day 3, you'll have the opportunity to join us inside of our foundations program. Shai, if I could be there, I'd give you a big old giant hug and a kiss on the cheek to tell you thank you so much for coming to us and speaking to us. I'm going to leave it open for just a couple more minutes so that we can end on time. But listen, you guys brought the fire again. Great questions, great interaction. Any other questions? You guys can come off mute. You know, I do like to let you guys come off. If you'd like to come off mute. Tell me what you guys have. I want to appeal to the D's and the C's in the room. Now that I know that there is such a thing. We will meet same time, same bat channel tomorrow, same Zoom time and room, I believe. So we'll be here tomorrow. So for those of you who are looking for the replay, I will be sending out the entire collection after tomorrow's session, after I get the last edit. All right. Any other questions that we need to address? If not, we are right at the bottom of the hour. Listen, have a wonderful Monday, and we will see you on Tuesday. Have a great day. I'll talk to you.